Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and most welcome guests. Do you make a difference? I mean, like, really make a difference in anybody's life? In your life? Well, that's a question to ponder. And it came to me in an email from a friend of mine. She said, you got to watch this movie. And sure enough, she had a link. I clicked on it, and great music, a really well done movie. I thought, this looks a little schmaltzy, so maybe it'll be all right. I got hooked almost immediately. The story of a teacher who had a senior group of students who were graduating, and she decided to acknowledge each of the students in her classroom and tell them how they had made a difference to her. And she gave each one of her students an I Make a Difference ribbon as she explained to each of them how they had affected her and how they had made a difference in her life. And then she thought about it for a few days after that occurred, and the students were all feeling glowing and important. And she said, let's do something further with this. I'm going to give each of you 3 ribbons, and you take these 3 ribbons and you give them to someone. And then you report back to the class, and let's see what happens. One of the students, a young man, had a mentor who was a businessman, and he was helping him with his early job hunt. So he went to his mentor, and he said, you know, you've really made a difference for me, and I want to give you this ribbon because you've meant a lot to me. And the businessman was really very pleased. So he said, may I put this ribbon on you? So he did. He put the ribbon on him. And then he said, and I'd like you to do me a favor and take my other 2 ribbons and pass them on to someone else, and then ask that person to pass it on to someone else. And then report back to me and let me know who you gave them to. Well, off the student went. Sounds like, oh man, he just didn't want to take time to find 2 other people, right? This was just too easy. Listen, what happened? The young man who was mentoring this student had a rather grumpy boss. So he went to his grumpy boss and he said, you know, I really appreciate your creativity. You are so ingenious. And I want to give you this ribbon because you make a difference in my life. May I give you this ribbon that says I make a difference? And his boss was like, well, yeah, sure, that's okay. I'd be pleased to get it. So he pinned the ribbon on him. And then he said, and by the way, would you take this ribbon and give it to someone who makes a difference in your life? And report back and let me know. So the boss did. He took it. And on the way home, he was thinking, who could I give this ribbon to? And he knew who he was going to give it to. And he got home, and he sat down with his son, who was 14, and he said, you know, I come home at night, and I get on you because your grades aren't good, and you didn't clean up your room. And he says, and a lot of times, I'm really upset with you. And he said, but you know what? Next to your mother, you're the most important person in my life, and you make a difference to me. And he gave the boy the ribbon. But the boy couldn't see the ribbon. He was sobbing and sobbing. He couldn't stop sobbing. And through his sobbing breaths, as he gasped, he said, there's a note upstairs. And the note was, I was going to tell you, I'm sorry for killing myself. And I was going to do it tonight. The father went upstairs, and sure enough, there was a gun sitting next to a note. And the boy had actually thought that he was going to kill himself that day. And he said, I guess I don't need the note anymore. And the father his whole attitude toward not only his son and his family, but his employees changed. From being a grumpy manager, he realized the value and the importance of relationships. Well, you know, it's a great story. I don't know if it's true or not, but man, it hit home. And it's not original. It's on the internet. I make a difference. And you know, there are times in here when we have people who've made a difference to me. And I want to tell you, my mentee Stephanie, you've made a difference to me, Stephanie. I really appreciate your openness to feedback from me and your willingness to grow. And I want to give you this I Make a Difference ribbon because you make a difference to me. You make me feel important. You are important. And you know, Sridhar, I've admired you because you have come to this club, which a lot of people are afraid to stay in, and you have jumped in with 2 feet to try to learn to be a better speaker. And you're a non-native English speaker. I really appreciate your courage, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. And I'd like to give you this I appreciate you ribbon. Thank you. And you know, there's someone here who's been hunting for work since last, oh, it seems like forever, but since last spring when school let out. And she's been struggling with teenage daughters. And you know how teenagers can be. And her attitude is so positive. Every time I look at you, Donna, it makes me feel so proud, and it uplifts me to know that you're the kind of person that's attracted to this club. And thank you for being a member, and I want to give you this ribbon because I appreciate you and your wonderful positive attitude. Thank you. And I could give ribbons to everyone, but there's another person here whose smile and energy and willingness to jump into a job that, I mean, off the charts as far as I'm concerned. Several years ago she jumped into it, and now she's one of the people who protects and defends us. Sarah Doshwan, you have been such an inspiration to me, and I want you to know how much I appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, and your willingness to help us all. And then there's another person who's been a long-term member who is just so attached to his beliefs. But his beliefs have led him not just to be a good Toastmaster. He goes outside and above and beyond. He goes and he deals with and he works with the forgotten and the people in our culture that a lot of us disregard. David Bond, I really admire not only your ideals, but also your willingness to put your ideals into practice to work with the inmates in our jails. And I thank you, and I really appreciate you, and I'd like to give you this ribbon because it means a lot to me personally that you're taking care of our forgotten members of society. And finally, oh, there's a big ribbon here. How could I forget? Well, this ribbon is really for the person who has put up with the arguments and the disagreements over 27 years of living with me, who always manages to come out with figuring out a way to make us laugh and smile at the toughest of times. John, thank you. And this is I appreciate you. Thank you so much for keeping the joy in our lives. You know, each of you make a difference. Find somebody else who makes a difference in your life and give them a touch of feedback. Let them know they really matter. It's so easy to do. Mr. Toastmaster.